Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Film Festival and Events, and welcome to our podcast. Now, if you've been with us before, you know that on our podcast, we kind of delve into all different types of horror films from different decades and different genres and subgenres and everything in between. One of the things we like to do is delve into a lot of the movies out there that just don't get enough play or are very big favorites of some of the some of my guest speakers that I have on the show.
I'm judging. I'm judging today.
I don't want to say judging because we're not going to judge any of the movies because we actually critique some of the not so good movies on purpose. But you just heard the voice of Dave Watkins. Say hi, everyone, Dave.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be back. Happy Halloween in February, I assume.
Yes, so he's getting ahead of us. We are having Halloween not in October, as we are going to talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 on this episode. One of the things we like to do is we don't care what holiday these films are. Some of these films are just great to be talking about year round. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this one. Now, if you've been with us before, you know that we've done a lot of the Halloween movies just randomly throughout the whole year. And we'll probably do all of them at some point, since everyone here who is a guest, I was about to say guest judge again, but guest on the show love the Halloween franchise or certain films in the franchise. So
Well, yeah, apparently not so much this one because I'm like the only one who wanted to do it. So,
hey, you know what? I have a greater appreciation for this film after on repeat viewings, and we'll get to that because I did not like this movie when I first saw it at the theater. So with that, we're just going to jump right in with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And by all means, everyone out there, make sure to check out some of their previous episodes. We've done them on Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. We've done several of them already.
Halloween 3, which is one of my favorite ones.
We did Halloween 3. Eventually, we'll get around to all of them because we love these movies. But
so let me place this one real quick. So this is a 2009 horror film. For most people, may or may not be familiar with the franchise, but this. So basically, there was the original, like, was it 6 of them that are all kind of continuity together, and then it was then they rebooted it with Halloween H2O, and then they did a sequel to the reboot, Resurrection, and then that one did really badly. But then after that, it did so bad that they had to reboot it again, and this is they rebooted it from the very start with Halloween in 2007. Rob Zombie directed it, and it was completely different than any of the other Halloweens. And now here's where we're at, Halloween 2.
So that's a good preface for everyone who's not into the big lore of Halloween. But the thing I like to say is the biggest thing that Rob Zombie brought to this is that the main character, or the Michael Myers, is not a nameless shape. He is a more or less a child who is kind of bullied and picked on by his own parents and driven to being this evil entity, as Dr. Loomis likes to call him. In a sense, he could have just been the early makings of a serial killer who just went nuts, instead of the whole evil boogeyman that John Carpenter created with his original film, and which was subsequently changed throughout the sequels.
Right, and this one, it kind of exists in its own realm, I guess. Realm's not the right word. That's not the word I was looking for, but we'll use it for now. But it exists in its own world, unlike any of the other ones. It doesn't connect to any of the previous films. So Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 are kind of their own universe, and they don't. There's nothing even pulled from any of the other films other than the first one has kind of the plot of the first one, begrudgingly. And this one, it kind of becomes its own film because Rob Zombie had to kind of remake the first one in a way for half of the Halloween, the first one. But this one, he's kind of let off the leash, and he kind of is able to do what he wants to with it, and gets fairly creative with it, really.
Yeah, I agree. When I first saw this movie and I hated it, I wasn't really buying into the type of story Zombie was trying to tell, or I was being really resistant to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's most people were that way, and including myself in a way. I didn't like go and picket it or anything, but
You know,
but,
I would
but
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, but I think that if it would have been nice to have if they were able to do another one, but at the same time, I do like it. They were eventually able to reboot it and kind of get into a more traditional type of Halloween. But at the same time, I do like the creativity he brought to this, and what he brought to it was a very Rob Zombie style, unlike any of the other Halloweens. But it didn't feel like Halloween, and I
No,
think people wanted that back. They're like, you could have done anything with this. I mean, you basically brought your style, and it could have been called anything, and we would have liked it better if you didn't call it Halloween. I think that's kind of what people's general point of view was, I think.
no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because I guarantee you that's what I thought when I saw this at the theater. And I knew a lot of I knew a lot of actors who were in this film or were connected to this film.
Right. They shot it in Georgia, so yeah.
So since it was shot in Georgia, and so I was really looking forward to the film. But when I saw it, I was completely like dismayed with the film. It took a second viewing. I had bought the movie when it came out on Blu-ray, and then I just sat on it because I was like, I'm just buying it because I'm a Halloween franchise lover. And it took a while before I finally sat down and watched it. And I watched it with a new critical eye, and I decided to say when I watched it, like, Zombie is really creative with the visuals of this film, and the way he's telling this story because Michael Myers, who essentially is this force of evil, so to speak, is also haunted in this film himself by his mother's ghost and his younger self. And you don't get a sense that he's really haunted until Laurie Strode starts seeing her mother and the younger version of Michael Myers at the very end of the film. You kind of just think it's all just the visual playfulness that Zombie is having with all this, and then all of a sudden, when she sees sees her mother, who she really never really knew. She was a baby when her mother.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So she shouldn't even realize any of that to begin with. And the younger Michael Myers,
it probably saw some pictures of her more than like maybe.
No, remember she doesn't know.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
She shouldn't know. It's connected in a supernatural way. And maybe it's and to take that even further, maybe it's an instinctual thing that when she sees her that she places it. But as far as she shouldn't have known because she was a baby, and then she basically was adopted after that.
Yeah. And this is the thing I really, really, really loved about the film. Rewatching it again for this podcast, I ended up really, really loving this again. This is the first one where essentially after the events of the first Halloween, Michael Myers is a freaking hobo, poor, on the streets, living off the land, legally on the one people's land who try to scare him off yet again. And, he doesn't react. Like, he doesn't go after anybody particularly until after he sees Dr. Loomis's billboard of the new book that he's promoting throughout the movie. And then that's when all the shit hits the fan.
So it's the trigger. I think it's
the trigger. Thank you, trigger.
It's been a year since the first one, since he did his rampage. And it's also is Halloween again. But I guess the trigger was seeing the billboard, maybe. I didn't think about that, but that makes sense.
Oh, I didn't think about it until I rewatched it. Most of the other traditional Halloween films, it happens because it's Halloween.
Right. But that's kind of hilarious, really, like the billboard. And of course, this one, Loomis go a completely different direction than the original series. He doesn't learn his lesson from the end of the first movie, and he's become like more egotistical.
Yeah,
and he's become like a writer. He's written a book, and he's doing seminars and just
talk shows and everything else.
Yeah, and really that's a lot of for Malcolm McDowell. When they talked about doing the second one, he's like, I don't want to do the trench coat, like hero Loomis. I want to do something different if I'm in the second one. So that was kind of probably what made Rob Zombie write him in that way. He writes him completely different. But obviously I prefer the Donald Pleasance hero trench coat version, but I do like the way they tried something different with him, and I don't think he has enough screen time, but he's kind of annoying because of the way he's acting, you know.
He's annoying, but he's also he doesn't want to recognize his fault in everything. But when other people see that fault in him, he gets mad. He gets
Yeah,
angry, and he wants to shout back at everyone. He thinks everyone's against him. I was like, well, you did write this book.
yeah. Yeah, and he's just, I mean, I guess that's the thing about it, like becoming a celebrity, like this kind of time frame. It was like a book writing celebrity was kind of on in line with like a YouTube or TikTok celebrity, you know.
Hmm.
So it was sort of that sort of thing, and just feeling the power of just the audience and kind of getting it more egotistical with it than he needs to be. And he's writing books about real murders that took place, and he's profiting off of it, and he's trying to act like he's doing it for the good of mankind or whatever. So.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to ask this because this is before the new Halloween films, the new trilogy. These were seen as extremely over the top and extremely brutal, and
Yeah.
that's part of Rob Zombie's style, and that's one of the things that when I rewatch this again, I actually liked more in the second film than I did in the first film. Because
Yeah, and it's also very gritty looking.
Yes.
I think he shoots at low lighting. It is intentional grain in there. I think it's probably shot on 16 millimeter film from what I remember, but it looks intentionally gritty and it's and like I say, when it's violent,
Mm-hmm.
somebody gets killed. And what's even more like, I go ahead and ask a question. I want to talk about the car wreck near the beginning though. After that,
Well, the
but
thing is, the every murder, every actual murder that Michael Myers does personally is brutal. Like he could hit him once or twice, like you'd have in a normal film, but he's hitting them 6 or 7 times.
right, yeah, and it's like some shit like Friday the 13th Part 7. They like cut him out like hitting the sleeping bag against the tree a couple of times. The censors cut that out, you know.
Yeah,
And then this is hardcore with the violence.
it is hardcore.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I actually still, even though, and this it will seem tame compared to like the Terrifier 3 now. When
Yeah.
this came out in 2009, people thought this was completely over the top brutal. But then
Well,
of course you have the new trilogy, and they're if not more brutal.
I think though when you look like you got that and you got Saw, but it's like people or who don't like that sort of thing, they're gonna think this is just as brutal as watching Terrifier 3 or Terrifier 1. They're gonna stop watching it after like the first time they don't like what they see, you know. Once it becomes like wow, that was really really brutal. And back to that car wreck, so at the beginning you got Michael Myers in the back of an ambulance. You got two ambulance drivers, one played
Mhm.
by Dayton Cowley he played from Deadwood. You seen Deadwood?
Oh yeah,
He was I'm forgetting his name now,
I
but
can't think of
like
his name either. I was trying to think of the
but,
last
but
one.
he was like Wild Bill's like friend, but he basically is in the whole show. But it had him, and then basically the two ambulance drivers, and they got some pretty. Not only is the violence brutal, but the dialogue is very vulgar
Yeah,
often, and they got some very vulgar conversations that these two characters are having, which is pretty realistic type of dialogue that you hear like out in the wild. But like most of the time in a movie, you're not gonna you're not going to put that in there because it's very disgusting and vulgar. But so they're having this dialogue, and suddenly out of nowhere, they're making jokes, and there's a cow, and they just run into a cow, and then one of them's dead immediately, and the other guy's like dying. He's like all jacked up,
Mhm.
and it's like and that kind of violence just. And he's like got glass in his mouth and all this and that's almost as bad. But then Michael Myers wakes up and comes over there, and if it's not bad enough, then he sits there and takes I remember when he takes some kind of tool and then cuts his whole head off while
Yeah,
he's already jacked up to begin with. I don't know. It's brutal though.
yeah, it's brutal. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is, I think that, and I don't recall, to be honest with you, my thoughts on the brutality when I originally saw this because I saw like Hostel and all the Saws in the theater, and I've become a little bit desensitized to the brutality of certain movies. especially even Terrifier, just oh, okay, type of movies for me now. But for audiences, 2009, that whole era right now is when we were getting those type of really brutal horror movies, and Rob Zombie was just pushing the envelope further than a lot of other people. Like Saw, people think is brutal, but I mean not Saw, but Saw, the original Saw, and Hostel, people look at as being brutal. And when I look at those movies, I don't see those as being all that brutal.
I don't know. I don't think it was necessarily the original Saw, but I think that when I was watching the second one, it's been a long time since I've seen it. The original one I didn't have a problem with. When I was watching the second one, it became harder for me to watch, I think, in Hostel. But I think a lot of it might just be the ideas behind it,
Yeah.
and because you can't just have brutality without a build up. And sometimes the build up is what makes it, makes it like more grotesque or
Yeah.
more awful, So, and like in this situation, you got the two drivers having the conversation, and then instead of him just killing them, like he could just wake up in the back and kill them on the driving. They run into a cow, and then he comes out, and then they're suffering from the car wreck, and then it then like makes it even. I guess maybe puts him out of his misery, but he seemed like he might have survived otherwise. But
No, but you bring up my whole. I was hoping you'd bring this up because this is one of the things I noticed in this movie. Even though Michael Myers is very brutal in this movie, there is a lead up to all the conversations with the people that he kills, like the people whose lands he's on. They have a conversation about him before he attacks them and kills them brutally. And that seems to happen with a lot of these, not only because Rob Zombie likes to bring in a lot of character actors, bygone character actors, people who we recognize their faces but don't remember who their names or remember where we've seen them from, but he brings them in there so they can have this big juicy little scene, and of course he brutally kills them. I loved it in this film. I didn't think it worked as much for, I think it was the House of a Thousand Corpses. I'm trying to remember the one because we've done several Rob Zombie movies now on the show, and so I'm trying to remember them.
Right, and yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen House of a Thousand Corpses. I didn't like it the first time I saw it, but it probably deserves a rewatch. And was it in The Devil's Rejects as the sequel to that one?
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's funny too the way that they go ahead and make sure that people aren't going to like Michael Myers in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Because earlier on he just kills a dog and then eats it. So they so in case you're thinking about getting on board with his violence, it's like, okay, he's going to kill this dog and then eat it. So at least he eats it. So yeah, he was hungry,
God. Oh my God, I had forgotten about that, to be honest with you. I always forget about that sequence. So bringing it up, I want to ask you this because I wasn't sure, because I think this is the fourth time I've seen Halloween 2 now. But when I rewatched it for this podcast, this episode, I was concerned about how unhinged they played Laurie Strode's character in this film.
Right. Yeah.
She seems to be on high alert from beginning to end in this film, and I don't want to say I was annoyed on this recent viewing. I just didn't take note of it before this recent viewing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I have some thoughts. I do have a note that I just wrote down while I was watching the film. I have written down, Laurie gets a little whiny in this one.
Okay, so it wasn't just me.
But I mean, I see what they're doing. But yeah, earlier on, there's a scene. Margot Kidder plays her psychologist, and there's a pretty good scene between those two earlier on. But even like when you see her by herself, she's actually fairly annoying in this film.
Yeah,
because so she's living with Daniel Harris's character, Annie Brackett, who survived the first one that you thought she died. And actually, Daniel Harris is really good in this one, and so is Brad Dourif, who plays her dad, the sheriff. And she's living with these guys, and I really like the idea, and I really like them in the scenes when they're together at the house. But it's like she's escalating like fights intentionally with Annie, and it's like if the situation's that bad, maybe she should get a different living arrangement if she can't get along with Annie. I mean, obviously they brought her in to help her, But the reason Rob Zombie wrote it this way, and why she acts the way that she does, with Taylor Scout Compton, the way she performs it that way, is because of what they're trying to do with the character. They want to connect the idea of nature versus nurture,
Hmm.
where it becomes more of she's being nurtured by Annie and her dad, but the nature of her genes is Michael Myers, like the Myers gene, and she's fighting that, and that's really what he's doing, and that's what people don't want to see, because people think that Laurie Strode, they associate Jamie Lee Curtis's take on it, and she's the good guy, and if you go into this thinking that Laurie Strode's the good guy, she's not. You know, she's actually struggling with what Rob Zombie's placed on her, which is she's trying to fight being a psychopath, and she's losing.
I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to bring it up until the end. I mean that essentially I don't think I saw this really before this most recent watch, but I kind of picked up on all that because at the very end when we see her struggling with the mother she should not be able to know, or in the
Right.
younger version of Michael Myers, it's kind of like this transference of evil because she can't cope. And then that's where I picked up on exactly what you picked up on, which is the nature versus nurture type of thing. Um, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't like to bring everything up, but I'm glad you brought that up because I saw that this time in this viewing because I sat down and watched it more critically. That's why this film right here, I keep each time I watch it, I see something different because my original perception of this movie was so bad and so off. I'll admit that when I think my perception is
Yeah.
bad and off in the movie, I think this movie gets better each time I watch it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that too. I didn't have. I think I didn't like the first time I saw the first Rob Zombie Halloween. I really didn't like it. I liked it. Like I think we talked about it before. I liked it in two different parts, but I didn't like it as associated with Halloween. On this one, I kind of let that go, and the first time I watched it, I didn't like think it was the best movie ever by any means, but I didn't like not like it. I appreciated what he was doing with it. At the same time, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this film. A lot of cool visuals,
Mhm.
which are not the type of basically, if you think about the slasher audience, this is more like it's basically like a slasher audience plus more of a thinking person's audience, or
Yes.
more like a he kind of maybe goes more towards something like David Lynch might do with his dream sequences and things of that nature. So it's more surreal sort of stuff going on, and he didn't really want to just tell a slasher story. He wanted to make it more complicated and more about the psyche, I guess, than anything.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I kind of, to be honest with you, when I can't say when I originally saw it because I didn't like it when I originally saw it, but I kind of got the impression that Zombie wanted to try and make something more thought provoking, like Henry Portrait of the Serial Killer. You don't feel sympathy
Right,
for
right,
Henry at all, but you're stuck watching this serial killer kill people, and he likes doing it. Um,
right. Yeah,
and so I kind of you're willing to see the psychological makeup of this character, even though he's despised and he's despicable. And that's how I see the way Rob Zombie has created his Michael Myers. He's not a boogeyman. He's not somebody who just jumps out of the shadow. This is a character that could actually exist because he essentially is a serial killer. He just happens to kill anybody.
yeah. Well, this it was interesting though. If you look at the thoughts brought in the new trilogy, especially the last movie, they kind of used some of the thoughts that Rob Zombie had in this movie, and people didn't like the third movie, Halloween Ends, but if they brought like some of the same ideas that see Rob Zombie wanted the characters from in this movie to what happens after the first film, the trauma from the first film. He has all the characters reacting to the trauma like they did in Halloween Ends. But that's kind of that's a lot of the idea of this film is seeing what happened to these people and how it affected them going through like a night of mayhem and terror, and what it's done to their what it's done to their lives, and even like PTSD in a lot of the characters.
Well, I think for me, And the only thing I liked about Halloween Ends is the fact that there was this sense of a transference of evil from Michael Myers to the kid, who since I've only seen that one once because I really hated those movies. I like that concept because essentially that's what happens at the end of Halloween 4 with the Jamie Lloyd character, where
Right. Yeah.
where you think that if they make a sequel, she's going to be the killer because she walks down just after killing her or stabbing her stepmother, and she's wearing the clown costume. And Halloween 2, essentially that transference occurs. Michael Myers, the evil from him, has transferred to Jamie Lloyd. Not Jamie Lloyd, but Laurie Strode. Let me get the character bit.
You're just to clarify. You're talking about Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie Halloween 2.
Rob Zombie, yes. Rob
yeah,
Zombie, yes.
Right.
That transference happens there, and then of course in Halloween Ends they try to do the same damn thing again.
Yeah. They've never been. That's what this seems like. That's what they've always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. They always want to transfer the evil to a relative of Michael Myers in Halloween. It seems like it has never worked. People have always rejected it. Like every time they go in to make the next movie, they change course with it. Because they don't have Jamie Lloyd. Because you imagine you go into Halloween 5 and serial killers like this 12-year-old girl. It's I mean, it's almost like you have to have a time jump. So it's an adult girl. So
I agree with you on that. I think if Rob Zombie if the studios had given Rob Zombie carte blanche to attempt a third movie, I think he could have come up with something interesting with the Laurie Strode now being a serial killer. Because obviously Michael Myers gets gunned down, and I would believe that he wouldn't have it where he was bulletproof or fucking, and he could get shot with all those bullets and still survive.
A couple of things about that. About as far as they actually wanted him to make another one, but he refused to come back for some reason. But
did he? I did not know that.
According to what I was reading about it, but this movie didn't do very good. Not as good as they thought it was going to do. No. It still made money, but they were expecting it to make a lot more money. There was a diminishing returns between this and the first one.
A huge diminishing, yeah.
But what was the other thought on this? But Michael Myers, So there's also, I've never seen the original ending to this film. The first time I saw it on DVD, and it was the director's cut, and it has a different ending than the original. And then I've got a Blu-ray version of it through the Scream Factory, but it's also the director's cut. I guess it's the preferred cut. It has a completely different ending than what you're talking about. So it's
I don't remember. Remember, there was a huge timeline between when I saw it at the theater and when I finally bothered to watch it on DVD. And you know what? I don't. How did it end for you?
So when I'm reading about the one you're talking about, she actually puts the mask on at the end, like Laurie Strode does. Is that what happens?
Yes, she puts the mask on, and then she goes to kill Loomis, and then she gets shot by the police officers.
She gets shot.
Yeah, she gets shot.
So that you may be watching the director's cut. So I don't know. I mean, but she puts in this one, she gets shot too. The one I was watching, she goes to kill Loomis and gets shot. She doesn't put the mask on though in the director's cut. Like Michael Myers is already dead, and then she gets shot and killed. So really, everybody's killed at the end of it.
I keep thinking in the theatrical cut, because I thought there was something weird too. I was like, I thought she survived at the end. So the theatrical cut has her surviving.
Here's the way it reads on the Wikipedia. Laurie apparently released from her visions. Laurie walks over to Michael, stabs him to death with his own knife. The shed door. She's inside the shed still. In the movie I saw, she's outside of the shed. The shed door opens and Laurie walks out wearing Michael's mask. Later, Laurie sits in an isolated psychiatric ward, grinning as Deborah's ghost approaches as the white horse, that's the scene at the end of the director's cut too. This white horse scene, but her walking out with a mask, I never seen that.
You know what? You got me confused. I don't know the version. I don't know, to be honest with you. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. My
But the way that I've always known it ending is is like basically Michael Myers gets killed and then Loomis is on the ground. He may still be alive. He seems to still be
yeah.
alive, and she goes over to him and she's about to stab him. Like in this one, in the original version, Michael Myers kills Loomis, but she goes over and she's about to kill Loomis, and then the cops shoot her, and Brad Dourif's like yelling not to do it, and then they shoot her, and then it cuts to the White Room scene, and the White Room scene is her in the afterlife, the way it's like in that version. Obviously, that's the intended version by Rob Zombie. Then they made him redo it for the theatrical to make it a little different. Which she comes out with the mask and still alive because they wanted to make a sequel with Laurie Strode in it. He wanted to kill everybody so they couldn't make a sequel. It's like, it's like yeah.
He says, "I'm just doing two, and I don't want to have anything else to do with this."
Yeah, I think he had a hard time on the second one. I think that they were
That's what I heard.
messing with him. Yeah, they weren't letting him do what he wanted to do. Even though it seems like if you watch the movie, it seems like he got to do what he wanted to do. But I'm sure they were breathing down his neck. The Weinsteins, the Weinsteins are like probably giving him a really hard time, and they kind of micromanaged anyway. But
Yeah, they've always been
the movie, yeah,
or
yeah,
not Harvey, but the other one who runs
yeah.
Dementia, or used to run Dementia.
It was a Bob, I think.
Yeah,
Bob Weinstein.
yeah. So Harvey ran all the art house films and big budget movies, and I guess his name Bob. I can't remember anymore. He used
Yeah,
to,
I think it is. Yeah.
he ran Dimension.
Yeah.
He ran everything that went through Dimension, which was all the genre films. So,
But but it's still like it comes off as a Rob Zombie movie.
yeah,
I mean, there's no question that this was directed by Rob Zombie from the style of it and everything that happens. So even though they may have been like breathing down his neck, they weren't able to change it in a way that it didn't have the Rob Zombie identity to it.
well, of course, because if they want to make a sequel, they're going to make a sequel regardless. It's Halloween. You can't end a good franchise, except for now you can because it's just going to reboot it again, anyways. Aren't they? I think they're already looking for a new talent to reboot it again. It's like it ain't even been dead for 10 years yet. You're already going to find someone else to reboot it. Let that shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, I think like a lot of people are very disappointed about Halloween Ends, but it's like where exactly do people want it to go is the question. Is that what do they want the same shit over and over again? I guess. I don't know what they want, but I mean, I wasn't particularly Halloween Ends.
Oh,
the first time I saw it, like I didn't like it, but watching the second time, I appreciated it more.
I never liked the new Halloween films. I didn't even like the first one. I thought that all three of them together had ideals that were really creative. I thought the writers were horrible because they could not they came up with these great ideals, but they couldn't follow through with these great ideals. Like I love the idea for the second film where you had this whole town of people who were just sick of being manipulated by the whole thing, the whole Michael Myers thing. Dude, that was a great concept. And then it had a horrible ending. Like, dude,
I didn't like. Yeah, I don't. It's something about. I mean, I like the idea. I just don't like the way that they were acting about it. I just thought it was so annoying to me the way that they were acting. They seemed to be very stupid too. Everything that they did.
Exactly. They seemed to get dumber.
Yeah, it was just like I don't know. The second one to me is the worst one, and I really didn't like Ends. I had a hard. Like I watched half of it and didn't watch it again until like a year later. Then I watched it again. I think we had a conversation about it, and you're like, "Oh, the second half's better than the first," and I was like, "Okay," and I watched it again, and it is. The second half is better than the first half. It's like, it doesn't make it a good movie.
No,
but at the same time, it's like. But my question to that is, what do people want from the franchise? What do they really want? And I can't answer that question myself because, like, I watched the first one and I'm like, okay, it was okay, but it's kind of just a rehash of everything we've seen before, and it's like, what do we want? The same thing again, just it's better or newer looking? I don't know. You know?
Uh, there are concepts with the new three where that was it Laurie Strode's character isn't Michael Myers' sister. He's just out there on a killing spree. So you made a movie about a serial killer who just randomly kills people. Great concept. It's been done a billion times, but great concept. The only thing that separated Michael Myers from Jason Voorhees is the fact that Michael Myers actually had a point for who he was killing. He went after his family members. Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees just killed randomly. You don't care. You don't even have to come to my camp. You don't even have to come. You just have to be in the woods. You're just in the woods. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. No, it was. I liked it. I mean, I always thought it was fine, the sister thing, even though clearly they stole it from Empire Strikes Back. But it's like, but it is. I mean, I always until they made it different. I didn't think it was a bad plot point. I know John Carpenter didn't like it when they made him do that, but at the same time, that's always been my because I've always just thought that's how it was until I was reading about it more. But apparently some people didn't like that plot point, but I think it works better when he's kind of got some anchor, like you're saying.
That's what makes Halloween H20, in my opinion, one of the better sequels. Is that whole thing that fact that Michael Myers eventually catches up with Laurie Strode when she's almost had her PTSD, which is why I don't like the remake, because I've already seen Laurie Strode with PTSD in Halloween H20. It's not a new concept.
Right, and Josh Hartnett plays her son, and it's cool she has a son, and they're able, and they kind of, that one's got that really, what was that in early 2000s, right? Mm-hmm. It's got that kind of early 2000s feel to it, but it's because you kind of almost feel like the characters are kind of safe. When you get into this Rob Zombie shit,
one's safe.
No one, you're like, you don't know who everyone's going to die, but in that one, you know that Josh Hartnett's going to survive, and that Laurie Strode's probably going to survive, and you kind of felt a little safer, and it kind of gives you, I guess, it kind of might give some people a better feeling watching a horror film that having those characters that they're not some people might like it when they get killed, but some people do kind of like the kind of idea of them not dying.
Yeah, but the thing that got that movie is that you saw Laurie Strode cut off Michael Myers' head at the end. And then they had to retcon that shit in the beginning of Resurrection, which y'all thought was stupid. I was like, no, that was a great ending for an entire franchise. She fucking chops his head off.
Right. Well, yeah, they chop off Jason's mother's head in Friday the 13th, But Jason's mother's hilarious, man. It's just so damn funny.
Oh, dude, I guess we gotta do a Friday the 13th movie.
When she slaps that, the main girl, I don't know, man. It's just so damn funny. She's got a sweater on. And...
Oh my god, yeah.
In that Friday the 13th remake, though, she looks more like she could fight, but that mother in the first one's doesn't look like she can fight at all. And she's killed 10 people, it seems like,
Oh my god. So any other thoughts on this film other than the fact
yeah, I got a couple of things I wanted to address. Let's see. One thing we never talked about, and this is near the beginning of the film, we should have talked about it. So the beginning of Halloween 2, actually the whole Halloween 2, John Carpenter's version, did he direct Halloween 2? I think he did direct Halloween 2.
He did not officially direct Halloween 2. That's after the studio saw the version of the movie and they wanted him to go back and do reshoots.
Oh, okay.
So he did the reshoots, which is to make it bloodier. So
yeah. But anyway, that whole movie takes place in the hospital. And so going into this, there's a really awesome scene in the hospital that kind of mimics a little bit of the original Halloween 2, and that it kind of seems like the whole movie is going to take place in the hospital, but it ends up being a dream sequence for the most part. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool part of the film, and it kind of was when it didn't do that, when it went, it was all a dream. I think that was a big oh, that sucked a little bit, but at the same time it was cool, but it kind of took you out of it a little bit.
You know what? I don't remember my original reaction to that scene when I saw it at the theater, but when I rewatched it, in knowing that it was a dream sequence and all that, I actually liked it more. Only because my thoughts, and I could be completely off base on this,
Yeah.
that Rob Zombie didn't want to be hankered by a Halloween 2, the John Carpenter Halloween 2, the first sequel, or by people's expectations. And he just did it for like the first 15 minutes, 20, 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Because it's a long opening, that dream
Yeah.
sequence.
It's probably 20 minutes, but like it's but they're not, the whole thing's not a dream sequence. I'm gonna tell you where it stops when it becomes a dream sequence. But it's I mean, when I was saying that, I'm not necessarily criticizing. I think it's pretty brilliant because I think it's hilarious too because it makes people think they're basically remaking Halloween 2 and then they're not. But I think the first time watching it because it was so that part is so well done in the hospital at the beginning that when it cuts away from it, you're like, damn, I was getting into that. But at the same time, the way that and that's the only reason why it is so good is because the Halloween 2 is in the hospital and it's really kind of drags out the whole
Yes.
hospital. This one just has the end of that. It's just like the best part of it, you know. But where was I going with this? Okay, so the dream sequence,
Yep.
the dream sequence, um, it, the beginning of the film when she's being out of the house and she's put in the ambulance and driven away, all that really happened. And then Michael Myers is in the ambulance and the ambulance driver is wrecking to the cow. And then once Michael Myers gets out of the car and walks away with the guy's head or whatever, from then until she wakes up, then that's the dream sequence. So maybe the first like I think it's maybe 8 minutes of it isn't a dream sequence, and then 15 minutes is, and then she wakes up. But it's a little confusing because you might think the whole thing's a dream sequence, especially because Michael Myers starts seeing his mom and all this shit, and you're like, that's not happening. But but later on, you think, oh, later on you figure out, oh, maybe it is. And there's also like several really cool dream sequences in here, and there's even one that has a like a Halloween 3 nod where there's like a skeleton, a witch, and a pumpkin creature in the dream sequence. And other than that, I think I did have one other thing. Now I know a lot of people, and when they think Halloween 2, they really hyper focus on the horse, and they think it's a unicorn for some reason, and they're like, unicorns aren't scary. For one thing, it's not a unicorn. For one thing, it's a horse, and her mom's got the horse, and yeah, it's a white horse, and there's a scene at the beginning. They even put a blurb up talking about a white horse, but I don't know why people associate that with a unicorn, but it's not one. Even if it was a unicorn, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But but I think the horse is it's weird that people don't like that. I think it's a cool touch,
So
and
do I.
that yeah, she gives the kid a white horse, like Michael Myers a white horse, and that's why he sees the white horse. And at the end of it, in several of the dream sequences, he sees the white horse, and Laurie Strode sees it at the end. So I think it's a cool touch myself. But I have noticed a lot of people pointing that out as why they don't like the film specifically.
Yeah, there was a lot of hate for this film, more so than the first Rob Zombie film. And I was part of that whole bit when the movie originally came out. And I wish I could remember who told me I should rewatch it. Um, I can't remember anymore. But I've seen this one more than I've seen Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. I've seen part 2 more than I've seen part 1 now. I enjoy part 2 more than I've enjoyed part 1. For some of the reasons we spoke about part 1, is like it's really two separate movies stuck together as one.
Yeah, and I watched it recently before we did the other podcast, and I actually liked it a lot more on the second time. I still had that same thing. Every time I've watched it, I've always like really liked the beginning, and then it was like a complete like it kind of does it here in this one too because you have like the first 20 to 30 minutes, and then it's like a year later, and they kind of in a way follows the same format. Like he has like a beginning that's different, and then it's like the second half's a little different, but it's not as jarring in this one because it doesn't have like a really awesome, really awesome like 45-minute like backstory of Michael Myers, and then it cuts to like, okay, this is Halloween 1 remade. Unfortunately, we got to do this because we're required to. You know,
Yeah, well, it would be very interesting now. It would be really, really interesting now to see what Carte Blanche Rob Zombie would be able to do with the Halloween and Michael Myers now in this climate of remakes, reboots, and reissues or legacy sequels, in which you don't have to deal with all the baggage if you don't want to. And if
Right.
he was not have to deal with the baggage, what he would come up with. Because I think he's a creative person. So
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And he wouldn't have the Weinsteins to bother him, I don't think. At least not Harvey anyway. So it's
just the crazy vocal fans out there says I think
yeah.
Halloween is still
Well,
the
yeah. I mean, I think like say yeah, if Rob Zombie did what he did with Halloween, like now after Halloween ends, I think people would be more open to it,
Mhm.
probably. Because now it's like people are so aggravated about Halloween ends. I don't know. I mean, it could be just as bad because if you think about it, like with Star Wars, people hated the prequels, and after the sequel trilogy, now they're starting to have more appreciation for it. But it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like it's weird the way people's point of view changes. It was kind of like, okay, I really wanted that to be just like the first Star Wars, but it's different. And then now you try to make it like the first Star Wars, but it's like not. It's like close, but not. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe those prequels were a little more creative than this new trilogy, you know?
I you know what, I won't know until I bother to watch the television shows and all the other crap that came with Star Wars. Thankfully, we do not have a Michael Myers television show coming up like most
Yeah,
of the franchises.
they're trying to do a Friday the 13th one, man. I don't know.
Crystal Lake. I don't know if it was the strikes or the writers' strikes or actors' strikes or what strikes held is holding up Crystal Lake, other than the
Yeah,
fact that the rights were in limbo forever. They fixed that stuff, but
right. I mean, it's hard though. Like, I think that the golden age of television, which is quite awesome. To me, I think it's shifting back to movies. I think it kind of did really well, but now it seems to be leaning back towards the movies. I wish they would like if they're going to make more Friday the 13th. To me, it would be better if they went back to the films.
well, yeah, because I don't think we need to watch Jason Voorhees every week for. I don't think Jason Voorhees is a non-speaking, just mindless killing machine. It's not the same as
Yeah,
watching, Chucky. Chucky has a
yeah,
personality, and I don't know if you've seen the Chucky television
yeah,
series.
yeah. Of course, yeah, yeah. I mean,
He's
I love the
absolutely
Chucky show.
brilliant.
But
But
again, yeah, it would be nice if they went back to movies, which they're probably going to have to do. But yeah, I agree though. It's like they did a really good job with the Chucky show.
yeah, it's rare.
Really,
It's
really,
rare. I mean,
yeah.
the Omen show, which was called Damien, I think it was called, didn't do anything other than one season. The
They
Exorcist
did.
show did 2 seasons.
The Exorcist show's good though. I like that.
Everyone says that. I
Yeah,
haven't
it's
seen it
good.
yet, but no one, it didn't get a third season.
Yeah, but I obviously I didn't have like the people who weren't watching it, but it's really well done. But it's as far as they have these two priests who are the main characters, and they're both pretty good. And then they go to a different. The first one's dealing with one exorcism, and the second season dealing with a completely different one.
Mhm.
I don't know if people were prepared to follow it, or I don't even know if they gave it a chance. So I clearly got 2 seasons, but it's actually really well done. I didn't watch, but maybe the first episode of the Scream series on MTV, but Scream had a show too.
Yeah, Scream, the first 2 seasons were amazing. The third season was god awful because they replaced everybody.
Yeah, I read about that. I didn't see it. I saw
Yeah,
part of it.
they replaced everybody, and I was like, dude, you took out the cast. The cast is what made the show first 2 seasons actually good. And I haven't seen
Yeah,
the Purge show yet. I haven't seen that one.
yeah. I watched some of the Purge show. I mean, I really think it's better when they stay to the movies and some of those things. But I think I watched the first. I think I watched the first season and maybe part of the second one, but
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure. But it's weird with a show because it's written like a movie, just longer,
Yeah,
really. Because it's like if you, especially the way when it's like a long form storytelling, like basically you take the Purge and they have a timeline of when the show takes place, and they're all connected. They don't just like end and it's like an episodic new beginning. They're all basically on the same sort of timeline of the Purge. It's like taking the Purge movie and making it longer, just adding more scenes and more character development. Which
yeah.
I like character development. I mean, that's a good thing about television is like a lot of times with the films they have to cut out this character development shit. But I don't know. Sometimes it just doesn't work in long form. Not that it's bad, but it's like I just like you lose some of the budget, obviously, and then you also have a lot of scenes that aren't necessary to tell the story, which
Oh,
can
come
get
on,
kind
we
of
can have
annoying.
another. What was it? Another Resident Evil TV show, which was also god awful.
I didn't see that at all.
That's god awful. It's on
Yeah,
Netflix. It's horrible.
yeah, I
It's
didn't even know they had
horrible.
that. I'm kind of got. Yeah, another thing is like it just takes so long to watch it sometimes, and it's kind of like yeah. With Chucky, on the other hand, I was anticipating every episode, but sometimes you're just like you, especially when it just dumps it. It's like, oh, by the way, here's 8 hours of a show that's a movie drug out into 8 hours. And it's like, oh man, now I want to watch it, but then it's like I want to watch all these other things too. So I don't know if I want to really watch that for 8 hours or not. Yeah,
God. You'd be hardcore Chucky fan.
yeah,
And plus, one of my last thoughts on that before we get back to Halloween is that the Chucky franchise, unlike Halloween, unlike Friday 13th, unlike the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Chucky franchise has all been written by Don Mancini. He has
right,
had
yeah, yeah.
control over the entire thing, so everything is cohesive.
It's awesome. I really like the Chucky franchise. I've noticed that's happening more lately now. Like for instance with Terrifier and Smile, like the same directors getting to do sequels. Where before, like if you look at like say Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, yeah, it would change directors. Whether it be like the original director didn't want to do it anymore, or they just wanted to find somebody else that might be more appealing to people, but or they could control better for whatever reason. But I like the way people are keeping their franchises now, and they're able to go, make the story go where they would want it to go instead of like where the committee of the studio would vote on it to go instead.
No, and I'm sure that was the allure of doing the three last Halloween films. They kind of knew like we're going to do these three Halloween films. Well, we did the first one, but then they're going to do a second and third one, and they're going to be
Yeah.
able to have complete control over the story elements for those three. So they could kill them off at the last one. Even though I didn't care for these three, I forget that the Danny McBride and the other his writing partner who wrote these was also going to do the Exorcist next three, but
Right.
he did the first one and it was Believer and it was received horribly. I would have
Yeah.
liked to have seen what they would have done with three Exorcist movies. I think even though I only enjoyed parts of the Believer movie because like normal they can't do a good follow through. They have these great concepts, but I don't think they have good follow through with them.
It was David Gordon Green is the director, but what I really would like to have seen is Danny McBride appear on screen in those Halloween movies. He was like so good in Alien Covenant. I would like to have seen him on screen at some point, especially since he was like kind of involved with it to begin with.
He should have been one of
Yeah,
the townspeople in the second one, in the second
yeah,
Halloween one.
yeah,
He would have been perfect. Him and
yeah.
Michael, what was his name? What shit? I can't think.
Anthony Michael
Anthony
Hall.
Michael Hall.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I hate for him to be a throwaway part, like a cameo, but I mean, I really think that he could have elevated it. Maybe I like Danny McBride. He's hilarious but also like he has proven that he can do dramatic roles too. But
Mhm.
I guess at the same time he didn't want people to. I guess he didn't want to put himself in there and then people not like it for whatever reason. But
I know. I'm like you. I actually liked him in the Alien Covenant. I thought he did a good job.
yeah,
And I've always liked Danny McBride. I just realized watching those Halloween movies that I was not a fan of the writing aspect necessarily.
yeah. It's weird. I saw the first one and I liked it, but it was like the second one. I was just like, wow, I'm not liking it. I didn't. But and then by the time the third one came around, I just was disinterested in it. But
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'll give it another chance. Like I did say, I did tell you I did like the third one when I watched it again, but the second one I think is the worst one, really. Yeah,
Well, I'll say this about those movies. I love the score for all three of them.
yeah.
John Carpenter with his son and his son's friend. I can't remember their names, but did the scores for all three of them, and they they're beautiful. They're beautiful scores for all three of them. So,
But these Rob Zombie Halloween films, I think that they live in their own type of world. But I think that maybe they haven't been given a lot of love even now. You know, they right now they only have a Blu-ray offering, and they haven't had a 4K transfer. Now they are shot on 16 millimeter film. They're going to look really raw but even really, I was looking at the Scream Factory version of it. Like it looks pretty crisp. I mean, I see a lot of detail on people's faces and stuff in it. But
well, yeah,
but really, like
I have Blu-rays of all of his movies. Actually, all mine are Blu-rays of his films because even some of his films I didn't like originally, I rewatched them and liked them better. I think his films aged better, surprisingly. Because I hate.
You talking about Rob Zombie or
Rob Zombies? Because I hated House of a Thousand Corpses, but when I rewatched it for our podcast, I actually ended up liking it more. I was like, "Oh, this is not nearly as bad as what I originally thought it was."
Right? Yeah, I only watched it one time. I think if I saw it again, I would probably have the same thought on it. I did like the Captain Howdy clown character that Sig Haig plays. Wanted to watch it the first time, but. I probably if I like you said if I watched it again I would like it better.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping the only movie of his I'm hoping that I enjoy maybe better the second time would be his Monsters movie, which I still didn't care for.
I saw your review on that. I like that one. I thought it was pretty cheesy, but I liked that he did it like kind of like the show in a way. He didn't do it like he did these Halloween films. He actually stuck to kind of the feel of the show and didn't go in a horror direction with it. You know,
I think I was the wrong person for that because I was never a Munsters fan. I think I wrote that in my review. I was never a Munsters fan, and I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it. I liked the look, the cinematography, the look. Everything looks magnificent in the Munsters movie. I didn't like the story, and I didn't like it. None of the comedy came off on me at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely like the Addams Family better than the Munsters, and I think it's sort of a. But not that I'm not against the Munsters, but I've always have preferred them to the Munsters. But I do like. I do like the Herman Munster character, and they always he always casts his wife and stuff, and a lot of people really not liking that. I think she's pretty funny, really, in the Munsters. You know,
I thought she was fun.
Yeah,
you know, if she's listening to this, I think she's perfectly fine in almost every film she's been with Rob Zombie. I'd like to see her in someone else's movies just to see her range. But I've never had a problem with his wife.
Yeah, I haven't either. I noticed that people online just talk too much shit. It's like they shouldn't have that opportunity to like they do. I mean, I guess it is like free speech, which we need free speech, but it's just annoying though because he's like say if you post like, "Hey, Rob Zombie, I'm doing a film," and then you suddenly have two to 20 idiots blasting his wife. You know, because they're jealous or whatever. You know.
I've never had a problem there, and I actually really loved her in Lords of Salem. I think that's one of my my top of Rob Zombie's films. I really enjoyed her in that. I think she's fine. The Devil's Rejects. I thought freaking that's a brilliant movie.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, she has good energy though, and it's like I mean that's the thing about it. I mean, people, I mean, it's not like she's out there sucking. You know, she brings like this energy to whatever character she's playing, and it's just like it's really surrounds her. You know, so
I don't
know.
Never seen her bring less than 110%.
Right. It's
her energy. She reminds me of Peter Cushing. No matter what movie Peter Cushing was in, he always brought 110%. And now
she looks exactly like Peter Cushing. Now that you mention it. Just kidding. That's it. I mean, I was like,
oh my god.
Yeah. That's a weird comparison, though.
No, because when people talk about Peter Cushing, no matter what movie he's in, they always say that he always brought 120% or 25% in every film he was in. He's not like Bela Lugosi or Boris Karloff, so you watch some of those movies with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, you try to say, yeah, they look like they're doing this for a paycheck. They are slumming through this shit because they're just doing it for a paycheck. And you can see it. And you never see that in Peter Cushing. Doesn't matter what movie he's working on, what the budget is, he always brings 125%. and that's how I see her. I've never seen her do anything other than that. Like Margot Robbie would be another one. I've seen Margot Robbie in some bad shit, but Margot Robbie always brings 125%.
Right. Yeah, I could see that.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree about Peter Cushing. He's terrific in everything he's in. He elevates it, even if it's not a very good movie. Yeah, even if it's not good, just when he's on screen. Even Christopher Lee, though, sometimes when you see him come into a scene, it makes the scene, even if the rest of the actors aren't on par with him.
But, I've seen a lot of movies where Christopher Lee is just phoning it in. I think Christopher Lee probably would be a much better person, in my opinion, if I didn't see that he did so many films where it just seemed like he was phoning it in, or he was there because he had to be there. And which is sad, which is really sad, because I really like him too. There's a lot of great actors out there that that sometimes they just are doing it for a paycheck. And it feels
sometimes it's like they're doing it for a paycheck, but they don't know how bad it's going to be until they get on set. And maybe they're on set and they're not liking the other actors in the scene, or not liking the director, or they're not getting what they need. To make it. There is that. I mean, it's always the assumption that it's a paycheck, but I think a lot of time it's just that they are taking it for a paycheck, and then they get there, and the whole everything just sucks,
Yeah, it's kind of like watching some of Nicolas Cage's movies. He's doing it for a paycheck, and he told you he's doing it for a paycheck.
Yeah, he still seems like he's having a good time, even if he is doing it for a paycheck. He seems like he goes ahead. It's just like when he's doing it for a paycheck, he would just go real crazy with whatever he's doing.
Yeah, he's not like, I'm going to mention his name, Steven Seagal, who literally is one of the worst actors out there now, because he literally is doing everything for a paycheck.
Is he still working? I thought he was like,
no, he
canceled.
Still works, dude. They all still work. Van Damme, Seagal, they all.
Yeah, but Seagal was like accused of like something for some women or something.
Sexual harassment, and of course, he's officially a Russian citizen and a whole bunch of other shit. But
the one movie of his I would recommend is Under Siege, if you've seen that one. That one's good, but I don't know about other stuff. And they did this show called Steven Seagal Lawman, and that thing's hilarious.
I haven't seen that. I don't know where it's streamed.
It's hilarious because it's like a real type of show. They're trying to make it look like he's real, and he's following these cops. He's going with these real cops to like situations, and he gets out and he's acting like Stallone, like Seagal. He's acting like he's like the shit, and it's just so dumb. It's so dumb. It's hilarious.
Oh my god. Well, we need to rate this movie before. If we're talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and we digress to Steven Seagal, we've gone too far.
I agree. I don't know how the hell we got to Steven Seagal. You brought it up.
So, how do you want to rate this movie? Rob Halloween 2.
Yeah. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I'm going to give it 3.5. It's
3.5 stars. Okay. I'm going to give it about the same, 3.5. I may actually go to 4 if I rewatch it again. I'll probably find some more shit that I didn't see before that I'm actually going to really enjoy. Right now, it is 3.5 stars for me, because
let's just clarify, it's 3.5 out of 5. I don't think we said that, but
no, we did not. Listen, out of 5, not out of 10, because we were both.
We'd be really low if it was out of 10, and people would be like, "Damn, you guys really hate that shit."
And we don't. When I first saw the movie, I would have given it 1.5 stars. So me giving it 3.5 stars is actually a cut above. So 3.5 stars. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I do recommend it for anyone who is a Rob Zombie fan. It is one of my more enjoyable. It's one of the more enjoyable Rob Zombie films out there. Although lately he's been doing a lot of fun movies. And sometimes he does some thought-provoking movies such as this, or Devil's Rejects, or even Lords of Salem. But with that, I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on this Conversation in Horror, where we talked about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I hope that we get some more Rob Zombie films as the year progresses. But with that, I hope you all out there are listening. Check out this podcast on all your, all the favorite apps out there and on YouTube. Make sure to check us out on previous episodes because we've done a lot of films over the last year. And make sure to leave us notes on any other films that you would like us to talk about, because we are always open to adding more films to our list. And the year just got started, so we need a lot more. With that, thank you so much for joining us for Conversation in Horror. From everyone here at the studio, you guys have a great day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.